Hello and welcome to the incredibly influential and highly successful podcast. I'm incredibly influential.
And I'm highly successful.
It is April 21st, 2022, as of recording this, and I want to dedicate this momentous first episode to my friend Zoe, who just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Zoe.
Happy birthday, Zoe.
Yeah. It's our first episode. I'm really excited. This is something new. Uh, uh I'm very very new to the whole podcasting idea, that whole industry thing. So I'm just kind of playing it by ear. I think we both are, and
Yes, definitely.
yeah, this is all very new to us. So just hang in there. Um, but I think what we really wanted to talk about today is you just watched episode 4 of Moon Knight, and I watched episode 4 yesterday. And I think we wanna do some talking about that and maybe get some predictions. Maybe see where you think the series is going. Maybe where I think the series is going, and
You
we'll just kind of
know,
figure it out from there.
yeah, yeah, like I just watched it. I have to say that ending was something, right?
Yes, that ending. Let's spoiler warning, of course. Spoiler warning for the most recent episode of Moon Knight. um, yeah. That ending though. Oof.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
like so basically like there was several things that kind of really surprised me this last episode. The one thing that surprised me, obviously, we know that he didn't have his suit the entire episode because he lost it at the very end of the last one, right?
Yep. Yep.
Pretty much, this is like Steven's episode. Mark kind of takes hold of the body for like what the very last bit of the episode. It's
Yes.
just the
Yes, he
Steven
does.
show, right? And as
Yeah.
soon as Mark takes hold of the body, you know, he gets shot, and it looks like he's gonna die, right? He
Mm-hmm.
falls into a black void. We assume he's dead.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
what I am not really sure of, I don't know the comics. I don't know anything about Moon Knight. If this scenario has appeared in the comics where he's died,
I'm not
but
sure actually.
I'm
Uh,
sure it has. But
yeah, they do death fake outs all the time in
yes,
in in comics.
almost every hero has died once or twice. It's not a good
Oh
hero if they
yeah.
don't die a couple times.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
pretty much, we're in like a white kind of medical ward hospital is what
Psych ward.
I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
psych ward. And he's trying to be convinced like everything that he remembers was all in his head, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't really know what to make of that, right? Is this all in his mind? Is it in the afterlife? Is he in a coma? There's a lot of different ways they can go with this,
Yeah.
right? And
Uh,
he ends up finding Steven, right? As a
yeah.
separate entity, right? So they're not stuck in the same body anymore. They each have their own body now.
That's what it appears to be. Yeah.
So obviously we're in some kind of like mind palace, afterlife, coma, something like that, right? Where it's his
Yeah.
psychic, his mental is kind of being tested here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get a reveal of what I'm assuming is an Egyptian god. I'm not too familiar with all the
Uh,
Egyptian gods.
I believe her name is, and I'm going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation. So sorry to anyone who speaks Coptic. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Let's hear
I
it.
believe her name is Tawaret.
To what
T
it.
A W A R E T. Tawaret. And
To what it.
she has a hippo head, and she is the goddess. She's a fertility goddess, I believe,
Okay, well,
which
that is a
is
little bit of an odd
something.
choice, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Because I thought it would be one of the gods kind of with like that was along the lines of like mind, spirit, afterlife, but fertility is one that It does
Yeah,
kind of
it
seem
is
out of
an
nowhere,
awkward
doesn't
one.
it? Right?
Yeah.
And
Um, I
like
I think I I don't know. I think there's still a lot of questions we don't have answered yet. Um, Another thing that I noticed in the psych ward scene, I don't know if you noticed it, was when Mark and Steven ran past that third sarcophagus, but they didn't
I
open it.
there's lots of questions, right? There's lots of open-ended kind of threads that haven't really been addressed throughout the series, right? The sarcophagus is one, uh, and then we have I think this was the third episode, right? We have all these other gods that are apparently also still living who just kind of aren't that important.
Yes, they've decided to take an observer role. Aziz, Horus, uh, Tefnut. I forget the rest, but those were the three I remembered. And they got real mad at Khonshu because Khonshu has no chill, and decided to be real aggro um, at the court hearing, and then he decided to break the rules again, so they locked him up. I don't know if you noticed from the end of that episode, but there's a whole bunch of statues in there.
I
So
don't think I
they,
did see that, but like, are they like the same type of statues that he was trapped in, like those statues?
yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole bunch of gods who got locked up, but apparently Amit is so bad that not even the gods were allowed to know where she was. So I think it's going to be very, very spooky when she gets out.
Well, like I feel like this is the type of prediction that you would see for any kind of show, right? Obviously, it goes like, "Oh no, it was too late. The bad guy got out," and then they somehow fix it anyways, right? That's kind of the
Yes.
theme that they usually go with these sort of things.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as somebody who's watching, I definitely want to see Amit. I want to see what we're dealing with here, right?
Yeah. I really
Uh,
like what they did for the design of Khonshu. I think that design is like pretty much directly lifted over from the comics, and it looks so good. The effects they did for Khonshu are just absolutely mind blowing. And then for Tawaret, they did a really good job there too, right? You know, see that giant hippo lady, and you're like, oh my god, that's a giant hippo lady.
yeah. Also, the costume design I thought was great. The costume design was awesome. Definitely during, I think there was a fight scene either in the third episode or the second episode where you get to
Mm-hmm.
see his cape, his abilities. We get to see both. We get to both see both
Yeah,
costumes, right? We get to see two different versions. You get Steven's
Mr. Knight
costume.
and Moon Knight. Yeah,
Is it Mr. Knight? Is that the
yeah.
actual title?
I'm a little bit mad at what they're doing with Mr. Knight because Mr. Knight's supposed to be a personality all on his own.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So
but
in the
instead they've
comics, is
yeah
there
instead
more than just Steven and Mark?
There, yes, actually, and that's why there's that third sarcophagus. So
Oh,
in
okay.
the I don't know. This is gonna be like mild spoilers for future episodes because I'm sure they're gonna bring him in. But
Okay.
there's a third personality called Jake Lockley, and he is like a cab driver. That's his shtick, is that he is a cab driver. And I think, because remember in that first episode where Steven blacks out and takes back over, but the suit isn't on him and like he's covered in blood. I don't think that was Mark. I
You
think
don't
that
think
was
so?
Jake. I think Jake is the unhinged murder personality. I think
I,
that's
you know
who it
what?
is.
That would make total sense because there is a point. I think it was the third episode where Mark gets into control, I think, and he asks Steven, "What did you do?" after they've killed somebody. Steven obviously doesn't remember anything, so they just kind of think it's each other.
No,
And that kind
it's
of
Jake.
that part didn't make sense, right? Because obviously it's never worked like that way before since the start of the show. So that would explain that one part where it kind of seemed like nobody knew who was in control.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious of this third person's role because we know Steven's story, we know Mark's story. Where does Jake fit into all of this, right? Because it seems like Steven and Mark had like completely separate lives. They were well, at least Steven was completely unaware of Mark, right? They lived in different areas, they had different
Yeah,
houses, they had different lives. It seems like a lot to have a third person kind of just jump in out of nowhere and have both of them have absolutely no idea about it.
yeah. I think I don't know how they're doing it in this show, but I think so in the comics, Mark Spector is like, he's a mercenary, uh he's he's like the dominant personality, right? So he's like an ex-mercenary, and he's like Khonshu's direct, like, uh chosen avatar. That personality is the one that Khonshu wants to be Moon Knight. But there's at least three other personalities. There's Stephen Grant, who in the comics is a billionaire, and that's how Moon Knight has all those gadgets. Um, because he also has like a moon plane. I forget the
A
name of it.
moon plane. I'm sure there's
Bat.
a clever sort of name to it, isn't there?
Yeah. Batman has the Batwing. Moon Knight has like a crescent-shaped plane hovercraft thing that he flies around in.
I
And that's how he affords that. And then Jake Lockley is like his like eyes on the ground kind of. He's got a feel for the streets, you know what I mean? And
okay.
then Mr. Knight is supposed to be like some kind of detective guy. But I think what I've read was that they basically confirmed that Mark Spector is Moon Knight, Stephen Grant is Mr. Knight. So Mr. Knight is just Steven's thing when he puts the suit on.
So in the comics, these suits are like different personalities, whereas in the show, the suits are just kind of extensions of their personalities. Is that kind of right?
Um, Not necessarily. Um, the suit is, I think in the comics the suit is just a suit. There's actually been certain runs under different writers
Mhm.
that will make the reader doubt that Khonshu is even real at all. There are some where Moon Knight has no superpowers, and he's just batshit crazy, and he just likes to whoop ass. And I mean,
See,
honestly,
like
Mood,
that is one of my favorite things that certain shows have done in the past, right? Where they've kind of instilled that kind of like doubt or like mystery about it, right? Where you at the
mm,
very end of the movie you're thinking, is this all real? Is this all inside of the person's head? Nobody really knows, right? I remember
yeah,
like and that's why what's it called? There was that movie that came out a while ago, the Joker movie. I
yeah,
where all these really crazy things happen, right? And
hmm
you can look at it as things that actually happened or things that happened completely inside his head, and it would make sense both ways, right? And I think that's
yeah,
it's really interesting when they have that duality, right? So I'm interested to see kind of like where they go, especially with this like whole like psych ward scene that they ended off with, right?
yeah. I'm really interested in that too. I think I think Tawaret is going to help them get to Khonshu and free Khonshu, and then get them back to life. Um, but I think in doing so, they might have to free Jake Lockley, and Jake Lockley might be like the evil murderer personality. I think that's what's gonna happen. Um,
You know what I'm interested in? I feel like with a lot of superheroes in the MCU, they've all kind of had like their origin story, right? And I feel like with Moon Knight, we just jump in, right?
in medias
M-
res, yeah,
m-
it's really refreshing actually.
Most people don't know this character, and we're kind of thrown in. There's like this mystery. You don't know what's going on, especially in the first episode. If you haven't seen the character before, you're
Oh yeah.
wondering what's going on. And I really enjoyed that, right? But I would
Hmm.
definitely like to know even more about this character's background than we're probably gonna get in the series, right?
Yeah, I think that's what the next season is for. If you want another show that actually kind of did that, most of the Netflix shows kind of did that.
Oh, you mean the ones that were made not canon, I think.
No, they're still canon. They're still
Are they
canon.
also canon? I thought that they were
They
made
put them
not
on
canon.
Disney Plus. They put them on Disney Plus.
I
So
don't think does that immediately just make them canon though? Cause
no, but well, Daredevil and Kingpin both showed up. So in other projects. So I think that makes them canon. I'm pretty sure. I I I can't imagine they wouldn't be, right?
yeah, it's just a little frustrating, right? Cause now I kind of got to figure out what's canon, what's not canon. There's so much to watch.
I
And
think
I
everything
f-
is canon.
and I
I
feel like
think
because like they were like Netflix shows, right? The type of writing
hmm
in them is a lot different than like these new Disney Plus shows they're coming out with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although I have been hearing them say shit a lot in Moon Knight, and I think the stipulation that Marvel gave to Netflix when they were making those shows is do as much gore as you want. Like you can go crazy on the gore, crazy on the blood and all that, but you can't say fuck. They can be TVMA, but you can't say fuck. So they didn't. They did not say fuck yet. Not a single one of them. You would have thought that in like Punisher or Daredevil they would have, but no, not a single one. But they were gory as all hell, and oh my god, they're great. You, I don't know if you've watched them yet, but now is actually a really good time to start because
Like that's the thing, right? Like the only show that I ever started and I didn't even finish the show was Agents of Shield, like a long, long time ago when that was
oh,
first coming out, right?
you don't
And
really need to watch that one. I mean, I will give them credit for on Agents of Shield. They did bring in Ghost Rider, and that is immediately badass no matter what. And I hope he comes back in some capacity. I hope Johnny Blaze comes back cuz I liked the one they did with I forget the character's name, but Gabriel Luna. I loved his version. Um I wish they would bring in a Johnny Blaze. Johnny
is
Blaze is
Johnny
awesome.
wait, so is Johnny Blaze remind me of that is that Fantastic Four or is that separate? Because who's
No,
it from Fantastic
that's
Four?
Johnny Storm is
That's Johnny
the
Storm.
Human Torch.
Okay. Okay,
Johnny
so
Storm is
Johnny
the Human Torch. Johnny Blaze is the original Ghost Rider.
Oh, okay, that's the Ghost Rider. Okay, that's what you meant by Johnny Blaze. I'm not really familiar with
Yes.
Ghost Rider as much. It's been a long
He's
time since
fun.
I've watched the Nicolas Cage movies, and that's pretty much my extent with the Ghost Rider franchise.
Those are
Um,
not very accurate to to the character. Nicolas Cage is
yes,
great. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely gonna go see that Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent movie. I'm
yeah.
absolutely gonna go see that, just because Jesus Christ, Nicolas Cage is just God's gift to acting. God's gift to acting.
He does strike like this nice area in acting where it doesn't even have to really be that great. It's great. It's fun to watch, right?
I don't know. I saw him. He did a movie last year, called Pig, and go watch Pig. Just
Go watch Pig.
everyone who watches this podcast needs to go watch Pig. You need to go watch Pig. You personally, who is listening to me talking right now, you need to go watch Pig. Pig is amazing. It's very good, and
All
I
right.
think it's his best performance of his career. It's very understated and subtle,
All
but
right.
he's very very good in it. And yeah, it's just a fantastic little film, and I
Yeah.
think everyone should watch it. So I know that Nicolas Cage can be subtle, can be understated, can be uh a little bit quiet, honestly. Uh I don't even think he has the most lines in that film. Uh but he's very 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 good.
Well,
Uh yeah.
I understand you like Pig. I'll have to definitely look into that later. I've never heard this film before, and I've not really kept up with Nicolas Cage's career in several years. But I'll definitely look at it probably after this. But going back to Moon Knight,
Oh yeah.
like for predictions and things like that going forward into the future of Moon Knight, right? It's hard to say what I think is going to happen just because I know so little about this character, just from the way they've portrayed it, which I love. It makes me surprised a lot of the time. But I
Mhm.
definitely I can't tell you what I'd like to see though, and I'd like to see some of the other gods kind of take a less passive role because I feel like the gods
Yes.
in like are some of the most exciting parts when they're on the screen, right? We have Khonshu, we have our new hippo friend whose name can't pronounce,
How about it? Yeah. Yep.
you know, and
On it.
I'd like to see kind of somebody who's similar to Moon Knight, where they are,
More active.
an avatar to a god, right? Kind of take an active role in all of it, or the
Yeah.
god themselves, kind of like how you see Khonshu every now and then. That's
Yeah.
what I want to see. Will we see that? I don't know, but
I think the stinger that we're going to get is I think it's going to tie in with Blade. And I think the way they're going to do that, I've seen this. I've seen people predict this, is that I think Sekhmet is going to be released as well. I think
Mhm.
and she is going to create vampires, and that's going to tie in with Blade. Except, well, Blade already exists in the by this time because he did a voice. Mahershala Ali as Blade did a voice cameo at the end of Eternals with Kit Harington, who's going to be the Black Knight. Um,
That is one thing that I think is real interesting. You're talking about the Eternals, right? I feel like in these movies, they've introduced all these new characters, these after credit scenes, and all that, and they haven't really had any payoffs yet. So I'm kind of wondering when we're gonna get some of the payoffs for all of this. Hopefully, in the new Doctor Strange movie that's coming out. But we just
I
have like Harry Styles in there for a couple seconds, at the end of Eternals.
yeah, I think
Uh, we
I
have
think it
the
would be
Loki
really
stuff,
cool.
which might tie in with the movies. I think that'd be cool if the Loki stuff ties in. We have
Uh,
WandaVision, that might
mm-hmm.
tie in with the Doctor Strange as well, right?
Yeah.
I
Uh,
can't remember how Hawkeye ends at
hmm.
this moment. I do know
I don't think it has a post
Kingpin was in
credits.
there. Um,
Kingpin was in there, and then they killed him off like a bitch. I'm still mad at that. That
he,
episode went from being one of the best to one of the worst.
you know, I don't exactly remember the entire of how it all happened, right? But it was strange that they introduced Kingpin just to, get rid of him so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. But it does seem like a waste if they don't bring him back.
It's hard to kill him in the comics.
That is kind of his thing, right? He's like an average guy who's just really big,
Yeah, he's just
and
fucking huge. He just
like
sources.
Because
He's
I
just fucking
remember,
jacked.
yeah, I remember what's it called? His inclusion in Spider-Verse, right, too? And I remember in
Yes.
Spider-Verse, he was like,
It was
it seems like
ridiculous.
it's ridiculous. Like he pulls apart like what, like steel or something like that. He just gets
He
hit by like a
beats
truck.
Spider-Man to death.
Oh yeah, he does just straight up kill Spider-Man too. Yeah, I completely forgot that
Yeah.
was like the beginning of how Spider-Verse started.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, all right. In in Spider-Man's first comic, so who Chris Pine is supposed to be? He's supposed to be like, well, Jake Johnson is supposed to be like the actual original comic Spider-Man, but in like his first issue, they drop a fucking building on him, and it's like that scene in Homecoming where he has to like lift it up and like get it off him. Spider-Man is insanely hard to kill, so if Kingpin can beat him to death, that is ridiculous. He is
that is
absolutely jacked.
that is one thing that I think is really difficult whenever they're making a lot of these like movies for Marvel, right? Is that if you
Hmm.
look into the history of almost any superhero, they've gotten so powerful to the point where like no regular opponent really can defeat them, right? So they
Oh
kind
no.
of have to nerf them all for films, right?
Oh yeah. There's physically like no way to beat Batman. Batman just never loses in the comics because he always has a plan for every single thing. You know how Darkseid? Have you ever seen Darkseid shoot his laser beams out of his eyes?
Uh, I I'm familiar with Darkseid, very very little, but I think I know what you're talking about. Maybe.
When Darkseid uses his laser eyes, they don't just go straight like Superman's. They can track you, right? And they're traveling at like almost light speed. So
Of
and
course.
nobody is able to dodge it except for Superman and fucking Batman. Batman is a rich kid from Jersey who can run faster than Usain Bolt. He can clock 40 miles an hour. He is They've made Batman ridiculous. He has a 192 IQ. He can kill every single member of the Justice League. Yeah, no. There whenever there's like whenever a character goes on for too long and there's not like a tight controlled little group of people making sure that the rules are internally consistent, writers can just do whatever the hell they want. We saw this a lot. I know you're not really familiar, but we saw this a lot
Mhm.
in Star Wars. Uh,
Okay.
every single author and writer and game developer was making characters that were just more and more powerful so they could outdo everyone else, right? Like, first it was um, first it was Darth Nihilus from Knights of the Old Republic 2. He was so powerful that he literally ate a planet. Like he just devoured all the energy from a planet and killed everything on it. He's literally like a living wound in the Force. Uh, and then it was the Sith Emperor because the Sith Emperor is more powerful than Nihilus, so he's got to be super buff. So they're like, oh yeah, he's actually so powerful that he's been around for like 5,000 years and he's killed like a whole bunch of people to like keep regenerating. Uh, and then in like 2009, it was the Force Unleashed. It was Starkiller, and they were like, oh, he can like pull a star destroyer down out of orbit and like avoid it, even though it's like millions of tons of steel and it's like a mile long. But yeah, sure. They Whenever you get characters that have been around for a really, really, really long time, everyone just starts to do a pissing contest with them, where it's like, oh, my OC is better than your OC, or oh, my Batman is so smart that he can dodge bullets because he can see where it's coming, and oh yeah, well, my Batman can fucking outrun a bullet. My Batman can my Batman's so smart that he's figured out literally everything. He literally knew everything at one point. They put him
That
in this chair that made him like that literally gave him omniscience. And it's like,
I,
well, what the fuck? What's the point?
that is the thing. I've never gotten too deep into the comic books, right? And I'm glad that the films kind of reel in the characters a little bit and make them a little bit more I don't know, like human.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in the comic books, if you read like certain editions, certain series even, like they just
Hmm.
go absolutely wild. Way way more than they should, right? And like I said, it's not just Batman, it's every single hero you could possibly think of.
Oh
There's
yeah.
at least one comic book of any hero you can think of where they are way more powerful than any any like TV instance you would ever see of them, right?
Oh yeah. Superman. Superman's done some crazy shit. Superman's ridiculous. Superman is just the most ridiculous.
Well, yeah, Superman is probably the one with the potential to have the most ridiculous stories in the comics because he's just an alien that has like 15 superpowers apparently.
Oh, more than
Um
15. More than 15. He can do
exactly, right?
whatever the writers want him to do at the time.
Right, he's
Whenever
an
they
alien, right? So whatever those aliens can do, which is whatever the writers can think of, that's what Superman can do. And that
the
and
funniest
that's
part is that they're normal people on their planet. They are absolutely completely normal
that's
on their
another
planet.
thing, right? I just feel
But
like it doesn't
he's
make
but like
sense. You know, how
everyone
did everybody die but Superman? Like we think about what Superman did and we think, how did everybody else die? Right? That doesn't make sense, right? I I don't know, man.
well, it's because I think their lame excuse is that they're from a planet with a red sun, which is valid. Yes, it does give off less radiation and warmth. Um, but if you're up close to it enough, where Krypton is the same temperature as Earth, roughly, then you're still getting about the same level of radiation because radiation is heat. Heat
Yeah,
is radiation. They're the
it's
same thing. So there's no reason for the sun to give Superman superpowers. There's no reason for it. Um, so it just don't make no sense. So a lot of those, just the
and I
science doesn't
understand
work.
like I understand the pressures of like comic book writers to just think of more
Hmm.
things, right? The problem with your hero getting ever increasingly stronger is that you gotta just make it just becomes more and more and more wild. That's further and further you go on, and that you can't really stop going forward after you've already started, right?
Yeah,
And it just leads to somebody like going into their local comic book store, picking up an edition of like Cosmic Spider-Man, you know, lodging planets at people, and you're thinking like, where? How did we get here, right? How did
exactly.
we get from friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to Spider-Man who's controlling the cosmos? It doesn't. The lines that they would have to draw are like crazy, right?
I
And it,
think there have been two examples of really overpowered superheroes in comics that have been done really well, like
okay,
consistently well. I think the first one is in Watchmen. Dr. Manhattan is like perfect. He cuz he has become a being that lives outside of time. He is experiencing all time all the time.
okay,
He knows everything before it happens because he's experiencing all of it at the same time. And he can literally do anything. He's completely omniscient and omnipotent. Uh,
okay, sure, fine.
and they do kind of do a little bit of techno babble to explain why he couldn't uh like because there is a part in the movie where like he there is shit that he does not see coming. So they do kind of do some weird technobabble bullshit about that. Um where he doesn't see it coming. Uh and I do hate that. But like his main thing is that I grow tired of like the human beings of Earth. I forget the actual line, but it's really it's all about how like I'm literally so powerful. I won the Vietnam War all by myself. I can vaporize people with nothing but a thought. Uh yeah. And but he's just depressed because he's so powerful. And the other example of that is One Punch Man.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was gonna say. One Punch Man is another one where I feel like him being overpowered is kind of part of the
yeah, that's
problem,
his whole arc
right?
is
That's his whole thing, right? Is that he never is challenged because he's so powerful, right?
yeah, exactly.
And it becomes kind of part of like a running joke, and they really play into it, right? But
I
most
wouldn't even
comic book
say it's a
writers
joke.
take themselves they take the characters so seriously, right?
Yeah.
But the plots don't make any sense, and I think that's the thing, right? It doesn't make sense for like any normal. Well, obviously none of these characters are normal, but it doesn't make sense most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if your character becomes too powerful, it becomes boring, right? And if it becomes boring, you got to create a more powerful villain, and then you see that's where the problems start happening, right?
Yeah, because then you keep going more and more, and you keep doing your little pissing contest, and you get a Star Wars Legends where like there are literal gods. Like there are people who are just so powerful that there should never be any stakes anymore. It should be literally impossible to kill them. And and it sucks. It I will be the first to admit that Star Wars Legends was not good anymore because of all of the uh ridiculous power trip pissing contest shit that was going on between the different writers. And I'm glad that there is now, or there was at least, a board of people who were like, okay, we want to keep Star Wars consistent. We want to make sure that it has a consistent internal logic, right? And
Hmm.
the way they're doing that is that they're making sure that everyone stays kind of realistic, right? There are certain powers and rules, but they have limits. With force healing, you have to transfer your life energy into the person, and if they're going to die, you have to die too. Um,
Is that how force healing works?
it didn't used to be in the comics. It used to be, or like in Legends, you used to be able to just do that. It used to be pretty easy.
I
You
If
just
they
had
die, you
you would
die too. I'm not gay. I know this is getting a little off the point that you're trying to say, right? I'm just really confused by that logic, right? So if they die, you die too, right? And you're healing them, right?
like if you're healing a dead person, if like the way. So spoilers for the Rise of Skywalker, I guess.
I
It's like a 3-year-old
guess
movie. It's like 2.5 years old
fine.
now.
It's fine.
Uh, Ray dies at the end, and
Okay.
Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, um,
Okay.
uh, he is very wounded, and he like comes to her aid, and he transfers the rest of his life energy into her,
Hmm.
brings her back from the dead at the cost of his own life, and that kills him. But it's like
Okay, so
a
that's what you
yeah,
mean, right? It's like it's like a trade sort of thing. Because the way
yes, it
I was interpreting it is that they just both die, which didn't make sense to me.
no, 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 no. The way it used to be is that you could physically just use the force to close someone's wounds. Like you could just use the force to stitch someone up. But in order to like actually force heal someone, you have to transfer your life energy into them, and their body and their life energy will, take the excess and like seal their wounds. Um, so there is a trade off for that now, and
I feel
now,
like life energy is such a, I don't know, it's how do you measure life energy? You know what I mean? It is, it
yeah,
doesn't,
yeah, the
it
the
seems a
force
little,
is still kind of nebulous, even though George Lucas tried to commodify it a little bit into the midichlorians. It is still a little bit nebulous, because they kind of retconned it to say that midichlorians aren't the force, they're just the original organisms that could touch the force and communicate with the force. So if you have a lot of midichlorians, then you can touch the force more. uh
okay, sure, why
Somewhat.
not? Right.
Yeah, it's nobody really liked the midichlorians thing, and yeah, I mean, it does make sense as to why it is stronger in families, but yeah. Um, but they've made it mostly consistent where Palpatine and Darth Vader are still the most powerful Force users in the galaxy, because Darth Vader absolutely should be. He is half Force, pretty much. The Force banged his mom,
The Force banged
and
his mom.
yes, so he has more midichlorians in
Man,
his
I'm
body
learning
than
so
anybody
much.
else.
I'm learning so much about Star Wars today, you know.
Yeah.
Just to let
So
y'all guys know who are listening, not watched anything in Star Wars. I think the closest I've gotten is playing like a Star Wars Lego game one time.
yeah,
So,
which is really funny because you're gonna be Luke Skywalker in in the script reading, which is
you know,
just the worst casting, but
no,
I
it's
could see
great
it.
casting, right? Just like the original Luke Skywalker from the original film, I'm just gonna be playing a role, you know. We're gonna see where it goes, right?
Now you know what?
Um,
That is kind of true because Mark Hamill had never seen a Star Wars film before he decided to voice Luke Skywalker, so
exactly. So
that might make sense.
we're gonna play a role, and I think my role is a guy who I'm a good guy, right? I think.
Sweet Jesus! All right. Oh dear Lord.
Or is good and bad kind of nebulous too in the Star Wars universe? That I don't
Uh,
know, right?
hmm.
There's the rebels and the Imperials, right?
All right.
Or the
That is
Lone
correct.
Republic, the One Republic.
No, 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 no. God, this is the.
Mm.
I'm beginning to regret giving away the role of Luke Skywalker so easily, but I really wanted to play Princess Leia, so I'm giving it away. Yeah.
So
Uh,
so it's not the One Republic versus the rebels.
no, no. I'm gonna make you watch the movie. Okay, you're
Isn't
gonna have to actually watch the movie.
All I know is that there are Imperials, I believe, right?
Yes.
And they march, and there's a cool song with it. That's what I know.
That actually,
Um,
a lot of people kind of have a little Mandela effect about that. That song or that piece didn't actually appear in the first movie. That was introduced in Empire Strikes Back.
well, I wouldn't know. I just know the song's called Imperial March,
Yep.
and I'm assuming they march to it. That's just a guess.
They don't actually march to it in
Oh,
this. Wait. They don't march to it in this trilogy. The only time that people are marching to the Imperial March is um later in the prequel trilogy before they're even the Empire. Because mostly they're just standing still when the Imperial March plays. So that's what's really funny. All right, since we're
see,
talking about Star Wars,
since we're
since we're
talking
talking
about
about Star
Star
Wars,
Wars, yes,
I think we've got to talk about Kenobi. I think we've got to talk about Kenobi. The
okay.
Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
We're
I am,
straying away from things that I know, and I hope you're aware of that right now,
yeah. Uh,
because you're gonna really have to take a lead if you're gonna want to talk about Star Wars things.
I can take a lead here. I got it. Uh,
Uh, I can talk about my experience with like the Lego Star Wars game that came out like a decade ago on
uh,
360, but besides that, I don't know
oh,
how much I
you
can do for you.
poor thing. You poor thing. That didn't
Mm.
come out a decade ago. The complete saga came out in 2008.
Oh, well, more
Lego
than a
Star
decade
Wars
ago.
1 came out before Revenge of the Sith. What's all right? So I don't know about if you know about this, but Revenge of the Sith was two video games came out before it that gave away the whole plot of the movie. It's hilarious because
I I
yeah, nobody had seen the movie yet, but these video games literally gave away the whole plot. It was amazing. It
that
was so
is
funny.
that is very funny. I could just imagine, you were actually into Star Wars and you played the games and then that happens. That must have been.
Oh yeah, like there were memes at the time, back in 2005. Memes were not quite as developed, but they were like everybody was memeing that they were like, "Oh my god, they turned Revenge of the Sith into a movie." It was
Oh,
great. It was I was
that's
3, so I didn't
hilarious.
really get to engage in those memes, but they're hilarious now looking back cuz I mean, those games sold like wildfire and the movie sold like wildfire, so it must have worked out apparently. But yeah, the I will say about the prequels, the biggest thing about them is the marketing. I have never seen movies more marketed than the prequels. Like my dad collects a lot of like old Star Wars stuff cuz he was a really big Star Wars guy and that's where I get it from. Like he was like 6 years old when the first movie came out and he loved it. And so he's carried that enthusiasm uh, up until now, and he passed that on to me. And uh, but like so like we collect a lot of Star Wars stuff, and the sheer amount of it that came out during the prequels from 1998 ish to 2005, it was insane. There were two animated miniseries. There were dozens of different toy lines, multiple video games. Uh, the Lego Star Wars whole product line came out during that time. Um,
So
and
I
then the
I I did
games,
look up the Lego Star Wars games, like the ones that have come out, right? And it was actually
yes.
2007 is the complete saga. The first two were 2005, 2006. So they are
Holy shit!
quite old.
They oh my god. I am utterly impressed that Traveler's Tales that's like the studio behind it.
Hmm.
I'm so utterly impressed that TT Games was able to um do all make all three of those games come out. Even though Complete Saga was just like a reboot of those that like they didn't change all that much, but like being able to release the one in 2005 and then completely overhaul all the systems from it and make it like 100% better in Lego Star Wars 2. Because I'll admit it, Lego Star Wars 1 is a little bit primitive and the levels are not quite as like intricate as Lego Star Wars 2. Lego Star Wars 2, though episodes 4, 5, and 6 are like peak video games. Like at least for kids, like
I definitely, as a child, enjoyed playing these games. Right, this was
yeah.
before they had like the voice acting. Like I was kind of talking about
Oh
that
yeah.
on your stream one day. I remember
Yeah, they
it was
they did
all
bring back
just
mumble
like
mode.
it was all just like them looking surprised, and then like music would play and they'd fly off into the distance or whatever have you, right?
Yeah.
And as somebody who never watched the Star Wars movies, it was enough for me to kind of be like, oh, I kind of get it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, but I can't tell you I remember anything though. So that is the
Yeah.
problem. While I was playing it, I remember I was fine, but afterwards, I can't remember a single thing.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that with the new one, I think they use the same cutscenes for mumble mode and voice acting mode. So the fact that they were able to make those cutscenes work with and without dialogue is actually a feat that they kind of worked towards in the Phantom Menace, because George Lucas said that when he was making Episode One, when he started with the prequels, he said, "I want this movie to be able to work with or without dialogue. You should be able to tell what's going on, even if you don't speak English, and you can." And that's what they carried over into the Lego games, and it's amazing. It's really good because those were like the first legit Lego games, like in like the whole general vibe of Lego games. And I think they took inspiration from that, and that's why so many of them didn't have voice acting. Obviously, it saved a lot of money, but yeah. So I think before we move on, I just want to give them credit for that. But I think we ought to move on now. Uh,
We
I
only got
want
sidetracked for like 30 minutes there. It's
to,
fine.
yeah. Well, we were gonna try and talk about Kenobi, but
We were talking about Moon Knight. You brought up Star Wars. I brought up that I didn't know anything about Star Wars. So we can go back to Star
yeah,
Wars, the Kenobi thing, if you really want to. Like I said, you're gonna have to
no. Let's start this new segment that I well, I guess every segment is new. Let's start this new thing here.
segment number
Um,
2.
yeah. So we're gonna call this. I think we should call it Big Red Button. And basically, the premise of this is there's a big red button. It's like, would you press the button? It's a big red button, and
But
you get
legally
one
distinct.
thing. Yes,
Very
legally
important.
distinct. That's one secret to being incredibly influential and highly successful is you got to make your shit legally distinct.
Exactly.
No copyright infringement here, folks. But
Exactly.
basically, but basically, um, we've got some questions here that I've been thinking of. If you want to submit them, we will. We'll probably have a way for you to submit them by the next episode. Um, but for the
I
first
I
few
believe this
questions,
is going up on YouTube, Spotify. I think you said Apple as well, right?
might not be going up on YouTube, but yeah, I think it'll be going up on
Not
Spotify and
YouTube.
Apple Music.
Okay.
Yeah, just because
Well,
it's just an audio track.
oh
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. Well, we need some way for them to send things in, so we'll
yeah,
we'll work on it.
yeah.
We'll workshop
Um,
it.
so for the first episode of Big Red Button, I would like to ask the question: uh, if you press this button, you gain a successful artistic career in the field of your choice, but your works are universally reviled, and you only get money from people who only buy your work to hate it. So, like, if you're a movie director, people will only buy tickets to see your movie to like make fun of it and call you a terrible director, right? It's like the Michael Bay or the M Night Shyamalan, but like even less fans,
That's the thing,
right?
right? Like I was thinking whenever you said movies, I was like, there already are people out there that are doing that, right? I
Yeah,
feel
but
like
like there
there are
there's no
like
like ironic love for it. Like it doesn't like wrap around to being like, oh,
it's so bad that
Tommy
it's good.
Wiseau.
There's no
Yeah,
nothing like
it's
that.
like, oh, Tommy Wiseau, you're so funny. You're so there's no like lovable irony there. They just hate your shit. They think you are terrible, and like you can't even laugh at it, right? Like it's just unpleasant and painful to listen to. Um, so do you
I,
think you could do that?
I'm thinking, right? Because if it's like an artistic career, you're put in front of a lot of people. You are, probably going to hear this criticism, right? Because for me, right, if it's
Oh
like
yeah.
something where I could be sort of anonymous, right? Or I won't have to like even like pretty much know that these people hate me, 100%. Yes. Click the
Yeah.
button, right? It's that part where people will like come up to you in public, or they'll see you on like Instagram, Twitter, social media, and you'll just get hate comments constantly. Now that I'm not 100% sure about. Is it
Oh yeah.
worth the
You
money?
will get
It might
universal hate.
be. It might be
All
worth
right.
the money, but it is a hard one. That one.
How
What are
much
you
money?
thinking?
How much money do you think you would have to take to do that? Like how much money would you accept to have that happen to you? Like if you were not spared, like if you were the constant like internet hate mob target just all the time, and people just called your works just terrible, awful.
Well,
Like
that's the thing, right? It's hard to imagine something that everybody universally hates, right? Because there's always a
yeah,
second side, right? So it's really hard to imagine just how hated it is, right? Like, is it hated by absolutely everybody, or is it only hated by certain people and then certain people don't know who you are at all? Kind of like how it is with most things, right?
you
Because
have no fans. You have no
no,
one who can
I
defend you.
I I understand that, right? But do I have 100% universal haters, even from people who like don't watch movies? If I go to a third world country like Africa, are they gonna be like hating me too? Or is it kind of like certain movies that are out there, right? Where a whole bunch of people hate it, and then a whole bunch of people don't know what's going on, right?
That is
Because
actually a really good question.
because
That is
that
actually
is
I didn't think
if
about that.
if it's 100% everybody hates you no matter what, even if they've seen the movie, they've not seen the movie, they're in somewhere where they can't even see them, like they won't even have the ability to see the movie. If you're hated by everyone, the amount needs to be exorbitant, like very, very, very high.
All right.
And even then, it still might not be worth it, right? But
If
if
it's like
it's
as
only
widespread as like Titanic or like Avatar, like that that widespread. Like people know, like there are people in third
so
world
you're
countries
So you're telling
who
me,
know about
right? Like
Titanic.
like Avengers Endgame, right? Everybody
Bigger than
and
that.
their friends and everybody, they've seen that movie. People are
It
going to
was
be
like if
coming to my
everyone hated
movie.
it. Yeah.
Everybody's going to be coming to my movie and everybody's going to be hating it, right? That's what
Yes.
we're talking about. Okay, now that is quite a big amount of people. I That is like apps. That's most everybody, right? There is
Like
a small group of
imagine
people, right, that I feel like who aren't
would
involved
defend
in it.
you.
Well, no, not
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
not would defend me, but wouldn't care, wouldn't hate me per se,
Mm. Mhm.
right? That would just, who wouldn't have an opinion, right? It's either you don't have an opinion or you hate it, right? I feel like
Yeah.
nobody's defending you because I think that's part of it, right? If you're gonna choose a side, nobody's gonna be defending you. It's either people
Yes.
who don't care or people who care and hate you, right?
Yes.
If it's end game level, right? And that is the
Yeah.
thing. Even with Endgame, I feel like, you know, the hate, it really depends, right? Because what's the level of hate? Because that's another very, very important aspect of this, right? Is it hate as in like they will like that I'll have people like physically trying to like end me in order to stop me from creating movies? Because there are people out there that are like that, right? Where they
I'm
hear their
trying to think of
singer
like
like think about like if you see somebody like say something racist or they say something
mhm.
like that's discriminatory, right? Is it like
Yeah.
that type of hate, or is it the type of hate where people are just like upset that it's bad, right? Because there is a difference there too, right? Is it the
Uh
type of hate where
a
they're
lo-
like going to be personally offended, or whether they're just like upset that it's a bad movie, right?
Well, I think if it was like, I don't know how much of this you saw, but The Last Jedi got a lot of hate from like a very vocal minority of people. Um,
Okay.
I don't know how much of that hate you've seen, but like people made like 6 hour long rants about, oh, The Last Jedi is terrible, my childhood is ruined. Like, imagine if everyone hated it that much. Like,
Okay. So
imagine if
this is type
Avengers
of
Endgame
level,
level
right?
popularity. Yeah, imagine if everyone went to see it like Avengers Endgame, but it was shit. Like, it was
Okay. So
ab.
here's what I'm imagining, right? And tell me
Yeah.
if this is kind of an accurate of how you would imagine it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Infinity War came out, right? The people
Yes.
Disney made that, right?
Yes.
I'm directing Endgame. It gets the same outcome as Endgame, right? But
But
because
it's.
everybody was expecting something really big, it's like a very, very personal level of hate, right? That is that kind of
Yes.
what we're thinking about here? Okay, so that
Like,
that that
imagine
is
if
that
Avengers
is
Endgame was on the level of Batman and Robin in terms of quality.
oh man,
That's what
that
you're.
is
That's what you have.
right because that's the thing, right? People who are personally offended or that cherish something, they are the people that I feel like are most likely to act violently if
Yeah.
something that they appreciate is not represented the way they want it to, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of this like with race and all that, right? If you call a certain race certain things, right? You've made enemies in that entire race. So I'm making enemies of pretty much all everybody who loves movies at this point, right? Um,
Yes.
which is the
Everyone
most
who
scary
sees
one.
it will hate you.
And it'll be like type of hate where it like personally offends them or something they like, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Would you press the button? How much money would it take for you to press that button?
before I answer, right? I just want to know kind of where your head's at. Does all this matter to you, or is it this always easy for you, right? Because I really have to think about this, right? But where are you at? Are you thinking about all this, or do you already know your answer?
I think if you were rich enough, um, even though most of the audiences would hate you, you would still get like invited to things, and celebrities would still try and schmaltz with you because your movies are still popular, but they're just absolute dog shit trash that nobody wants to watch.
Okay,
And
so you think that the while the viewers might be kind of hating on you, the people who
yeah,
want to be in your movies are still going to be nice to you just because they're like, oh, well,
he's
I can
rich
write off of
and
his
I'll be
success,
rich. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, okay. So you wouldn't
But there are
like
there are actually some artists and people like that who have turned down credit because the artists they were with were so bad. I remember Kesha coming up in like 2008. She was with she was
but
on a
then
Flow Rida
like
song
then at
and
that
she
point you're just
refused credit.
yeah, but okay, so then there's a thing, right? Then the problem becomes you're only attracting people who are going to be wanting something, right?
Yeah, like
You don't
nobody
have any
actually respects you.
you have no genuine relationships, right? At
Yes.
least, is it one of those things where I don't know, because I feel like money is great. I love money, and I would accept a large, exorbitant amount of money any day. But it's they do say money's not everything, right? I'm trying to
Yes.
see would I still be able to live a life that I would enjoy, even if I have this money, right? And I
It's
feel
like
like
trading comfort for dignity. Would you trade your comfort for that dignity, or would you trade that dignity for your comfort?
because I have to be honest with you, right? The answer would be yes, 100%. Only if like my personal like close group of friends and family also didn't hate me. If they hate me too, then I might have to reject it, right? Because then at that point you're isolated from absolutely everybody. You have nobody but this giant mountain of money. The only people that are gonna even be like your friends or even hang out with you are only gonna want to for your money. You're not gonna have any genuine relationships, and I feel like that's not a very good way to live, right? So
Yeah,
I feel like it that is like kind of like the one thing that I can't that would make me not want to click the button is if it was not only random people or people that saw my movie, but absolutely like all of my close friends too. Like it's like like certain families whenever they catch like their children in like porn, you know what I mean? They disown them. If it's
yeah.
like that sort of thing, I probably can't. No, I probably will not click the button.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting thing.
Because
I
the
think
random
it
people I don't
honestly
care about,
depends
right?
on the dollar amount because
You think that there's a dollar amount that would make you like want to live that life where even your family, your close friends, everybody kind of just separates from you?
I think I would have to be about as rich as like Jimmy Buffett or Dr. Dre, but yeah, like I'd have to be like a billionaire, but I mean, you're never going to have the way I see it, the really shitty part about being famous is, you know, you will never have a genuine relationship because everyone in Hollywood and everyone who's gotten that far got there not by being nice. They got there because they were ambitious and they wanted it really, really bad.
Look,
So
I understand that most relationships aren't genuine, but I do believe that there are some genuine relationships that celebrities have, right?
I don't know.
Like
I thought the only
like
one that was like
like for
legit.
example, right? If you got famous, right? Like your parents, your childhood friends, people that knew you before you were famous, right?
Yeah,
They, they would be like your more genuine friends. Maybe not all of them, but you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like genuine friends, right?
I've seen a few examples of that not being true.
Obviously, there are some times
Yeah,
where, it's kind of like a one-sided relationship, right? Where they don't know that they're being manipulated. But like I said, I think that most times your family and your like friends who knew you before you were famous, those are the type of people that are the genuine, right? Thing is,
hmm,
you would have nobody like that, right? Even celebrities, I'm sure, have like a handful of people who they're like, oh, this is somebody who I can trust, right? You would have
yeah,
no one you could trust at all because nobody cares about you, right? They only
yeah,
care about what you have and what they can get from you, right?
yeah. I
So
think
is that
I
worth the button though?
I don't know. I've never had that much money before. I've never really had that many people engage with my art before. I don't know how much like if I could handle like a negative hate mob on the level of The Last Jedi or The Last
That's the
Airbender from Shyamalan
that's the thing,
or
right? For
some of those other
me,
ones.
those things like that don't matter to me at all, right? I don't care how many random people hate me or if every random person hates me, right? It's those one or two relationships, those people that would be able to support me, you know what I mean, right? Because I
Yeah,
feel like without the support from at least a couple people, you're all on your own. You have nobody to turn to, right?
yeah,
And I just don't know how you would live like that, right? Having absolutely no one.
yeah, yeah. I get that.
That's why that's
I've,
like the one contingency that I have, right? If I'm telling you, if it's only random people, 100% taking the money every day, and it'd probably be a large amount of money, right? Because
but you would take it.
but I would take it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I don't think there's any amount of money, like I said, that would if it was like universally hated by even my close friends, my family, everybody turned away from me, right?
All right. Yeah, I you know what? I think that's probably a good place to kind of leave that. Uh I think we should tell our listeners, you know, maybe they should think about that themselves, you know? Maybe. You know, that's just something worth having a think about, you know? Like
Well,
are
tell
you
tell
willing
us if
to
you think of other like things that we haven't thought of for this button as well. I'm interested to kind of see if there's something that we may have overlooked with
yeah,
this button.
I would really appreciate that, but I think that's about all the time we have. I'm incredibly influential,
And I'm highly successful.
and we'll see you guys next time.